Hey everyone, welcome to the Crazy Daisy Creative Challenge. I've got a 5-inch surface here painted in the Dragonfruit, which is the brightest pink. And I've got my 16 arm stencil marked on my circle. So if you have not yet done that, go ahead and pause the video, and that's where you need to get started. I've got my colors laid out here. I've got Dragonfruit, Petal Pink. I've got Celery Shoot, which is the yellowish green. And then I've got Citron Green, which is the darker of the greens. And then Shoreline is our blue. I've got my tools laid out here and we're ready to go. So I'm going to start with my 8mm tool and the Citron Green, which is the darker green. And we're going to make our center dot with the 8mm rod. Now, as we're working this design, we want to keep this nice and tight in order to make it fit on our circle here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my eraser top and we're going to add some petal pink petals. So we're working around the center here. I'm going to add 8 of those. So when I'm working with sets of 8, I'm going to do my north, south, east, and west first. Remember to dip and dot each time. And then once I have those, I can center the next 4 right in the middle. Next, I'm going to grab my 6mm tool. We're going to add 8 dots with Celery Shoot. We're going to add 1 dot in between each petal. Next, I am going to get my 2.5mm tool. I'm going to use Pink Petal, and we are going to walk the dots. We're going to do a set of 4 dots coming out from each pink petal. So if you see here, each petal has 1, 2, 3, 4 dots. So I'm going to dip once, and I'm going to walk the dots. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you get the idea. All the way around. Next, I'm going to use my 10mm tool and Citron green dots, which is the darker green. And I'm going to place one large dot next to each smaller green dot. So we end up with 8 of those. Then we're going to turn those into petals by walking the dots. We're going to make our center dot in Petal Pink with our 3mm tool. So I'm going to do all my center dots first. I'm going to wipe off that end. I'm going to switch to my smaller end, the 2.5mm, and I am going to walk the dots on each side with the 2.5mm and my blue Shoreline. Now we're going to do both sides. I tend to do all the right sides first and then come back and do the left. If you like to do both sides at the same time, that's totally up to you. Next, we're going to grab our 10mm tool and we're going to add petal pink dots, one in between each of the previous petals. So where I've got these green dots, I'm going to add one pink in between. So we end up with a total of 8 of those. Then we're going to do just like we did with the previous petal, but we're going to change the colors. We're going to add our center dot in Shoreline with our 3mm tool. we're going to flip to the smaller side, 2.5 millimeters, and we're going to walk the dots on each side with our Citron green. All right, if you're following along with the guide, I'm going to flip-flop the next 2 steps just to make it a little easier. Same steps, it doesn't really matter the order that you do them in, but I think it's going to be helpful to flip-flop these. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to get my 4mm tool. We're going to add another layer to this petal. And so I'm going to do the center dot with Celery shoot and my 4mm tool. Then we're going to walk the dots on each side in Citron with our 3mm tool. Next, what I'm going to do with my 3mm tool, we're going to create some swipes inward. And this is why I wanted to flip-flop these steps, because now we know exactly where to keep it in line. So if we imagine that line that goes across the edge, where we just created the end of that petal, that's where I want to start this swipe. So I'm going to use Shoreline, my 3mm tool. I'm going to double dot the end just to give me a little more paint. And then I'm going to pull inward. And we're going to add one of those in between, centered between each petal. then right next to that, we're going to add a swipe on each side with Celery Shoot, which is the lightest green. Next, I'm going to grab my 6mm tool and we're going to add 16 dots around this circle in Petal Pink. So we're going to add one right next to the swipes and one next to each petal. There's a total of 16 of these. And the next thing I'm going to do is create this alternating set of ovals around the outside. And so I'm going to pick one color to start with. So I'll just start with my Celery Shoot. It doesn't really matter. We're going to alternate, so it's going to be every other one. So we're going to add 16 of the first color. And so I'm going to do each of these right next to that pink dot. So we're going to use our pencil eraser, and all of these are going to be the same color. Be very careful when you're working with the outside of your design so you don't put your hand or your fingers in any of the wet paint. So once I have all 16 of those ovals, I can come in with the other color, which is going to be my Citron. So I did Celery first, and then I'm going to add one Citron in between each of those. And so we end up with 32 dots all the way around the edge, or 32 ovals all the way around the edge. And that is the base of our design. So if you want to top dot with me, go ahead and let your piece dry a little bit and then come back and we'll do top dots, or you can do top dots of your own choice. I encourage you to shake it up and have fun with your top dots. What I did for my top dots is I did them all in the background color. Since I didn't use that in the design, I can use that on top of the design. So I'm going to use that Dragonfruit, and in the center I'm going to add a 4mm dot. In each of these celery circles here in the center, I'm going to add a 3mm dot. Next, in these larger Citron circles, I'm going to add a 6mm dot. And I'm going to continue the same in these petal pink circles, 6mm. And then lastly, I'm going to switch back to my 3mm tool, and in these petal pink circles around the edge, get a 3mm dot. And there you have it. There is our creative challenge. I can't wait to see your version. Make sure you snap a picture and share in our Facebook group or in the share space. And I'll see you next week, everyone.